As a dyed-in-the-wool suburbanite, here are 3 things I still hate about the suburbs. Hey everybody, it's Alyson Wahl with Live South Denver, your real estate strategist and realtor for the South Denver area. The first thing I hate about living in the suburbs is low walkability. There are very few places where you can live and live peacefully, where you can get out for a quick and pleasant walk to go grab a coffee, maybe pop over to the grocery store to grab a quick item or two, or even just stroll to brunch. Now, the head outside and take a walk lifestyle is absolutely fantastic in the suburbs and in all of Colorado. Getting outside for a walk for health, getting outside for a walk with the dog, getting outside to get a breath of fresh air, getting some scenery. We have lots of opportunity for that. But the walkability to get to a destination, to do something, that is really lacking in almost all of the suburbs. Now, this video shares some great spots where you can get a little bit of a walkable lifestyle outside the city center. And in addition to the locations I share there, you actually can find a little bit of a walkable lifestyle in some different spots in Highlands Ranch. I don't really call out Highlands Ranch as walkable. However, because of how many different shopping centers are placed strategically around Highlands Ranch, and you don't have to live right next to a major road, you can easily pop out of your neighborhood and go grab a Starbucks. And sometimes you can even walk to a brunch place or to grab something to eat as well. Tied into this low walkability for me as another thing that I hate about being in the suburbs is pedestrian and car interactions. There seem to be, to me, more aggressive interactions between drivers and pedestrians in the suburbs. And I think it has to do with the fact that, well, it's just a little bit more free-flowing traffic. You get out of the hectic pace of the city as you get into the suburbs. And so all the way up to maybe 2 or 3 minutes before you get to your front door, you're going 55 miles an hour, probably speeding doing that, but you are still probably cruising along at 55 miles an hour until you hit those last roads to your neighborhood. And most people are still speeding through their neighborhood doing 35, maybe 40, hopefully not, but they're really cruising along. And so slowing down, stopping, recognizing pedestrians, whether it's someone walking their dog, and worse, the kids, we really do see a lot of negative pedestrian driver, pedestrian car interactions. Okay, the second thing I hate about being in the suburbs, fireworks. That's an odd one, right? Now, I love fireworks. I love fireworks displays. I love the sound. I love the display of the lights, just the whole essence of fireworks displays. And we have never had a pet who is so utterly afraid of fireworks that we are dreading 4th of July. They've never tried to chew through walls or run away. So me saying I hate fireworks in the suburbs doesn't come from a place of trauma. But I can tell you, fireworks are one of the hottest topics on neighborhood Facebook pages, with the neighbors who want to outline their version of firework etiquette versus the neighbors who just want to have fun until the fun is done. The thing is, done to them could be days later, 3 a.m. in the morning, a different holiday, someone's birthday. Fireworks in the suburbs, at least in many of the places I've lived, doesn't necessarily mean just 4th of July. And fire bans and dry seasons don't seem to thwart true firework lovers' desire and interest and will to launch their fireworks either. Sadly, this past year, just a few neighborhoods over from mine, a home burned entirely down to the ground thanks to some poorly disposed fireworks, and along with it, it took the majority of the neighboring home as well. The last thing that I do not like about being in the suburbs is barking dogs. Colorado is a dog-loving state. We rank top 10 in the U.S. for dog ownership, with at least 47% of people owning a dog. And Forbes even did a survey of the most devoted owners of dogs, and Colorado ranked 100% on the scale. We are the state that is the most devoted to all of our dogs. Based on what they were looking for, I can attest to their findings. I see people leave apartments and small townhomes and buy a house with a yard for the dog. The single person did just fine in the townhouse or the condo. It was plenty of room for them, but it didn't work for the dog. And we also know that there are loads of people who are adjusting and accommodating their lifestyle and their budget so they can give their dog more of the lifestyle they think the dog deserves. Now, as a dog owner, we have had multiple dogs through their life cycles. And as a current dog owner, we love our dogs. I totally understand and appreciate this. But living in the suburbs means living in a pretty traditional, amenity-rich, modest yard-sized community very close to the neighbors. And that's where I live. I live right here among all these places that I talk about, right? So I can count from my backyard. I'm in a walkout basement home. I have mountain views. I have an extra size, oversized lot, which I love. But I can count 20 neighbors from my backyard. And I promise you, I can hear every single one of the dogs in those backyards. Right around me, 10 of my neighbors have dogs. And almost all of those dogs bark in their backyards. Now, I know it's what dogs do. Our dog actually does not bark. I think it makes us probably even more sensitive to it. One of my neighbors on the other side, their dog doesn't bark either. So maybe I'm extra spoiled that I have one who doesn't bark. We have another one, their dogs bark every time they enter the arena of their backyard. But luckily, it's just they're hoping someone else will come out and play, right? And then the neighbors call them back in. But I happen to be the lucky one. I just happen to have also a lot of dogs around us. But the barking dog situation, while I may fall on the good end of the spectrum, oh my goodness, the neighbors that post on the Facebook pages saying, hey, if your dog's been out for an hour barking, maybe you should pull him in. Hey, you left your dog out for 3 hours overnight and I couldn't sleep and it woke my kid up. I mean, that is kind of the rub of the suburbs. You're so close. And if your neighbor isn't considering anyone but themselves, you're going to suffer with them. And with so many people here having dogs and loving dogs, and sometimes being a jerk about their dog because there are people that just throw them outside, we all are worse for the wear for it sometimes. What about you? What is on your list of things you hate about suburbia? Okay, now I actually thought I could come up with 10 things that I hated about suburban life. I couldn't. This was my God's honest truth, right from the heart, things I don't like about being in suburbia, and I couldn't come up with any more. I love living where I live. I've lived in a few different spots across South Denver. I've been here for 20 plus years. I'm actually going on like 25 years of living here, and I love it. And I moved from college into the suburbs. I never ended up living in the city. My employer was in the suburbs, and so it just made sense. So here are the things I love about living in the suburbs. It's 8 things that I think are fantastic, and for most of you, they're probably right on your list as well. First up, the nature. In Denver, everywhere, we have a lot of parks and open space because it's how we spend our lottery money. We really appreciate and value having parks and green space and places for everyone to get outside. But here in the suburbs, it's different. There is just so much in terms of inside your community and the access leading from your community to open space that stretches across communities. I am in Parker, and I could get from here to Littleton on a trail. And all of our trails really interconnect and weave together, and we have parks and we have places to take our dogs. And the amount of open space and the opportunities to get from open space to open space and get up high and have views and trees and see color change. And in the suburbs, I've done some videos. You can check this one out right here. You could be in Lone Tree, which for me is 8 minutes away, and get up on rock formations and have hikes and get into some terrain and see some different viewpoints and vantage points that you may not get when you're down in the city. From here, where I am in Parker, I've got 2 amazing hiking opportunities that are just moments away. I've got Castlewood Canyon. It's probably an 18-minute drive from my house to get all the way deep in, and lots of places to explore. And then that one over in Lone Tree, again, 8 minutes away. Number 2, more space. It's so fantastic to have a yard. This is why so many people who love dogs love to get into a house, but everyone else as well. Now, this can be relative to where you're coming from. If you're coming from the south, sometimes coming from places on the East Coast, Midwest, it feels really tight here in Colorado. But relative to places along the Front Range where everybody wants to be, right? Fort Collins to Colorado Springs, we're packing in the majority of the Colorado population into that stretch. The suburbs is going to give you the most space possible. And it's not just the yard space that I'm talking about. Compared to being in the city, when you're in the burbs, you get more visual space. You've got more blue sky and you have the opportunity to see the mountains. That visual space where you're looking at the Rockies, which is what most people are coming here for, is one of the things I really love. Number 3, it's quieter. Now, that's kind of an oxymoron, right? Because 2 out of the 3 things I mentioned that I hate are noise. But relative to downtown, the suburbs are typically much quieter than a downtown space. You have fewer honking horns, your traffic's not reverberating off taller buildings, the neighborhood streets are quieter, you're usually set a little farther back from larger roads. So overall, it's a quieter feel. Number 4, better cost of living. I am all for putting money into other things than being house poor or only in your home. Being able to put money into travel, if you like hobbies, cars, you want to retire early. Being able to get more home for your money, if space is something you love, the suburbs definitely delivers there. Here's an example. I took a roughly 1.5 to 2 mile radius that covers parts of Wash Park up toward Hilltop, and then compared that to Highlands Ranch. For a 2,300 to 2,800 square foot home, we're looking at $1,050,000 in the Denver area. We're looking at $660,000 for an average price in Highlands Ranch. If you work in downtown, if you love the downtown vibe, then absolutely you should be there. Number 5, there's a tendency toward better school ratings in the suburbs, taking those same locations, that Denver area and the Highlands Ranch one. Here are what the high schools in those areas look like. The ratings in the Denver area for the high schools were running a 5, 6, and 7. In Highlands Ranch, we were running 7 through 10. And actually only one of the high schools was a 7. The rest were 9s and 10s. Next, neighborhoods. When I talk to folks who reach out to me who are local to the area and are wanting to move into the burbs and they're coming from Denver, so much of it has to do with wanting to connect into a community. They are starting their family or their family is just about to transition where their kids are moving into school, and they're really wanting something where they feel like they can connect, plug in, be in a place where their kids might be able to walk to school, or they feel like they're going to be deeply ingrained in a sense of community that they don't feel like they have in Denver. Those are specifically their words. They just say, I need to feel like I'm in a neighborhood, in a community, a place where they do some events, a place where our kid can go trick-or-treating, a place where we feel like we can walk the dog, where we feel like we're connecting into a group of people, kids, families, where we're all going to be seeing the same people over and over and around the neighborhood. And in the suburbs, a lot of times you've got an HOA that's putting on events. You've got 4th of July parades and cookies with Santa and fall festivals and summer parties. There's just a lot of opportunity to make friends if you're coming in new from out of state and just need a way to start to connect with people outside of just your workplace. Next, being in the suburbs feels a little less hectic. You're just separated from that Denver traffic, which if you have to drive in it regularly, you know feels great to get out of. Now, if you live inside Denver, there's also a separation from the traffic because you don't have to be in it all the time. And I will give kudos to our Denver area neighborhoods. There are some amazing places that you can live in there and feel isolated from that hectic pace. There are some really cool little pockets where once you get in, you're in your house, puttering around in your front yard, you don't feel all the hecticness of what is going on around you in the city. But you don't get all of the other pluses of the suburbs either. Number 8, no parking issues. Yeah, parking in the city can be an utter pain. It's very hard if you don't have allocated parking to yourself to squeeze in and parallel park on the street. Sometimes people will take your allocated parking spots as well. So if you don't have a large enough garage, you don't have a driveway, it can really be frustrating if you're not getting home at your normal time or getting home at an off time. You never have that issue in the suburbs. We live in a very heavy, family-friendly neighborhood. Lots of 2 and 3 car garages, but there can be multiple teens in the house along with the parents. There's still street parking where I live. Now, visually, it's great when the street is empty, but there are teen cars parked along the street. We still don't struggle with parking around here. So it's nice to know you're just going to come home, whip into your spot, get inside, and be done with it. If you want to spill the beans on what you love or hate about the suburbs and chat more about Denver, please reach out. You know I always love to connect, and I will see y'all next week.